Good morning. It's Friday morning, the 6th of December. My name is Sorel Ketan, if you don't know me, and my co-host and co-founder of the Daily Huddle is my good friend, Giovanni Gonzalez. Today, we have a phenomenal guest with us, Mr. Brian Marshall, who's come to us inside of a question that's near and dear to his heart. And that question is, are you living your purpose? I want to say a little bit about you, Brian, before we roll. Brian sent us this to say about him. Brian's a serial entrepreneur and investor, business advisor, and with a diverse background, spending over 30 years across a variety of industries globally. And 30 years is a short time nowadays. And yet it's a long time to be dedicated to something that you call your passion. So thank you for that, Brian. Brian's been involved in starting and exiting over half a dozen companies throughout his career. After exiting one of those companies, he founded TGP, Transformational Growth Partners, in 2014. And in 2022, he co-founded Strategy X. His mission, Brian says, is to help business owners develop an end game plan, optimize their planning and execution functions, and build cohesive teams to unlock the untapped potential within their business. And today he's with us, asking us, are you living your purpose? Brian, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Daily Huddle.
It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, are you living your purpose? But before we do anything with that, I want to bring Giovanni in on this conversation. Gio, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How are you, brother?
Great, great. Brian, good to see you, Brian.
Good to see you, Gio. Good to be here.
I had the opportunity to be on Brian's podcast and we like connected. I think I felt like Brian and myself are like two human beings born with a different mother with the same vision of life, heart for life, commitment to life. I mean, like it was the similarities in purpose, in soul. It was insane. It was like I met my soul brother or something like that. It was incredible. It was incredible. Brian, thank you for being here.
Hey, good to be here. Good to be here, brother. And I agree with everything Gio said. We had a great interview, great discussion, and I knew we were kindred spirits from the minute we started talking.
No
So
kidding. Sorrel, I've been meaning to tell you that about Brian.
I,
Brian, Sorrel and I'm talking like if we were in a daily huddle, right? But I'm like just being friends here with our friends here in the community. Hello, everybody. But I was gonna say this, and then we started the conversation. I was gonna say, Sorrel, when I met Brian, I was like, Sorrel, you've got to meet Brian. Brian and us, we like have the same heart and vision for the opportunity of transforming people's lives and teams and companies. Anyway, so thank you
Brian,
for being here, Brian.
that's music to my ears, guys. So,
awesome.
yeah, well, let's expand the brotherhood to include our sisters who are listening to us. Coach Ingrid and Tara Heaton are here. Good morning, ladies. Virtue's here too. Hey. So, Gio, you invited Brian and he said yes. So I want to give you the honor of kicking it off.
Thank you, Sorrel. Thank you. Yes, Sorrel, no, I mean, Brian, normally I will introduce Sorrel in a particular way because this gentleman has made a profound difference in my life. But I'm going to skip that. And I want to ask you, Brian, when you think of the opportunity of living your life on purpose, what would you say are the events in your life? What were happening? Because I want to start from the beginning. What was happening in your life that you were a guy who normally a guy who wants to make money, who wants to have power, who wants to be sexy, who wants to have, own the world, and all of a sudden purpose shows up. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, it's excuse me. Yeah, it's a great story. It starts off really, and I won't go through the whole timeline of my life, but I really started off with being a teenage dad and waking up and realizing that I'm going to be a dad at 19 and had to make some tough choices. Now, for my wife and I, who, by the way, we've been married 42 years. So
Whoa.
it's a great story, but I realized that I became a leader of my family at an age when I wasn't prepared. And that's a parallel that I've seen in my life, in the life of other leaders, that very little prepares us for the role of being a leader. And so I'll fast forward.
Brian, I'm gonna stop you for a second. That's my story as
No
well.
way.
No way.
You guys are sisters from another mother.
I was like in brotherhood more, Sorrel, not sisters. But anyway, go ahead. Go
No.
ahead, Brian.
So, I'll fast forward. I started a company when I was 20 years old, largely because I didn't have a resume that I thought people would hire me for. I didn't finish college because because I became a teenage dad. I worked in a factory to pay the bills. I went to school at night, got a job as a computer programmer. Fast forward, I realized, I'm a leader. I've got to go out there and I've got to lead a group of people. And so I sold my first company, and and I'm not bragging. I'm actually, I'm embarrassed. It sold it for $1 million, thinking I was the richest man in the world, to find out it was worth $4 million. And so I started this quest of, I need to figure out, that was like I thought that was the biggest mistake I'd ever made. And again, like most things, it was a blessing because I learned a lot from it. It drove me to really start to understand how businesses work and how they're valued. Well, I was chasing money for a long time, and I chased money for, you know, I wandered the desert for 35 years before I woke up, to put it in biblical terms. And
Mhm.
I went on a weekend back in 2015 that changed my life. It was a men's group, and that's where I discovered that I became a Christ follower and dedicated my life. I've got to figure out how to live my purpose.
Mhm.
Getting to the question, right? And I
Mhm.
realized my purpose was very simple, and it actually, in living my purpose, it simplified my life, because I was wearing a mask being a business leader, wearing a mask being a dad, wearing a mask being friends. I had all these different roles, and it got hard to figure out, which one of those was really me. And so, I sat down and crafted my mission statement, which really became my purpose, which is to really motivate, mentor, and inspire others to be great leaders. And together we'll change the world. And that's what I do. I mean, everything I do is around that purpose. So, I also run a not-for-profit, not-for-profit that takes men on a journey to go through a similar path like I have, teach them how to be leaders. Because if we've lost those rituals of leadership in our society, other societies, the Jewish tradition, they have a bar mitzvah for a young man when he becomes 13. His passage into manhood, and in the African communities and in tribal communities, they would have rituals where men would go out, boys would go out with men, and they would hunt, and they would come back a man. And we don't have that anymore. We've lost that. So, not being someone who wants to sit back and woe is me and be a victim, I just said, well, let's do something about it. And so I
Mhm.
partnered up with some guys. We've created an organization called battlecryinternational.org, and we actually lead men on that journey and create a brotherhood. And we've got
Mhm.
almost 1,000 members worldwide, of people that literally, you could pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm in trouble, and they will drop what they're doing and get on an airplane, drive, do what they have to do to be there with you. So the point in all that is, don't try to do this by yourself, because you will self-destruct if you try to be a leader by yourself. I tried; it almost killed me.
Mhm.
And I mentioned, excuse me, I've got some allergies going on here today. So I mentioned, being married for 42 years, but a lot of that credit goes to my wife. I wasn't the easiest person in the world to deal with. I was never home. I was always traveling, and I told myself I did it because I love my family. But the reality
Mhm.
is, I was addicted to work. I was chasing the status and the money, and one more. The old adage, how much more do you need? I always said, just a little bit more.
A little more.
And that's just a hole you can't fill with stuff.
Mm.
And so I've replaced that with and listen, I still enjoy money. It's a great tool, but I use it to do good. I use it to fund my not-for-profit. I use it to help people. My wife and I don't need much. We're living our dream in a very simple life, and it's a dream of being of service and watching the impact that you can have on other people. And so, yeah, long-winded answer, but hopefully I answered your question.
No, I love it. Go ahead, Sorrel. I got like so many directions. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sorrel.
Brian, I'm just curious about your children. The environment you were talking about, where you've got a group of men that form this brotherhood and will be for each other no matter what, regardless of the circumstances. I'm curious as to how you've passed that on and created that with your children, whether male or female.
No, not just my children, but with my grandchildren as well. And that's been the best part of this is that so first of all, I've been blessed. My wife stayed home and she took care of the kids and raised them. And, I mean, it's not that I was absent, but I was just kind of in and out. But the consistent factor in her life was my wife. She built great relationships. Our kids are just amazing. And we've got amazing grandchildren. But so we've passed on, our faith to our kids, and our faith has been passed on to our grandkids. And I watch them, walk their walk, and it's amazing. I wish I would have had that when I was young. I didn't come from a family that had that kind of direction and clarity around, what's important. But the other is giving these kids tools. We've given them the tools to learn how to communicate. We've given them, when they say something like, kid will have a temper tantrum, it's like, whoa, whoa, stop. Let's get in touch with your emotions. So are you happy, sad, angry, scared? Tell me what's going on. And so learning, teaching, giving them the tools to be able to communicate and process is important. But the best part about this as a parent is my kids love each other. And what's even more humbling is they love us. They want to, as adults, they want to come spend time with us. My kids are all coming to visit us in Gulf in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is not close to anybody. Because my kids all live in Chicago and Phoenix, and we're 1,000 miles away. But they can't wait to come hang out with us. And my grandkids are excited, and they're calling me up and saying, "Papa, 10 more days." And I'm like, I mean, that's to me, that tells you everything you need to know. Because so
Yeah.
many kids don't want to have anything to do with their parents, or they have a very dysfunctional relationship. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're dysfunctional as a family, like every family, but we work on it. We're practicing, being better. We communicate every day. We have a family text thread because communication is so key. So staying in touch and just letting each other know, hey, I'm busy, but you're still my priority. And if there's anything you
Mm-hmm.
need, let me know. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of those things parallel what great leaders do in business. And I don't want to say it's not hard. It's actually simple, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah. Very, very hard to do. Sorrel, I got a question. Can I take a question, Sorrel?
Yeah, go
Hey,
for
Brian.
it.
So, Brian, how I want to get into a little bit of m- your moment of in the moment that you had a psychological impact on what you're pointing to. Let me see if I can word it. Let me see if I can articulate it. So you were sharing how, I was a guy who was making sure I was going to make money. I was going to provide. My identity as a man is built around the opportunity of being a provider, right? And I think a lot of men relate with that. Most of us relate with that. And then you pointed to something that says something like, well, that's a bucket with a hole.
Yeah.
It won't fulfill me, you know, at no matter how much I make. What was the, how, if you could articulate, what was the reflection, right? The insight that said, I must balance this. It cannot be just in one direction. I've got to balance this thing called family. I've got to balance this thing called making money. What was that insight, and how do you and where do you go to reinvent yourself to go back to balancing in it again?
Yeah. So, I use the word harmony because I found that balance is really it's impossible to achieve balance. Balance assumes equilibrium. It assumes that everything is equal. And the reality is in life, when you're balancing or you're attempting to balance things like life and work and relationships, it really comes down to harmony. So first of all, I had to learn how to deal with the responsibility of having freedom. We all seek freedom. We all want it. But then most of us, and myself included, I didn't know how to balance it. So what did I do? I went all in 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. I worked. And I told myself that's what a good man does. Because I watched my dad go to work in a factory in a job that he hated for 44 years, never missed a day's work. He did it because he loved his family and that he was my role model. And I realized I was replicating that behavior a different way, sitting in an office. My kids would come visit me with my wife and kids would come visit me on a Sunday to have lunch. I mean, it's not quality time. And so I strove to seek harmony and I'll be a bit vulnerable here because I think leadership's about vulnerability. It wasn't at the pinnacle of my life that I figured it out. It was at one of the low points. 2008, I had taken everything I owned prior to that and I put it into real estate. Now, we all know what happened in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So here I was with an 800 credit score, filing personal bankruptcy and literally losing, and these are my words, losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Brian,
finally,
so that you know, same thing for me in 2008. Same thing in 2008
I
out of a
think you're maybe,
skydiving accident. But go ahead.
I think we're both two sides to the same coin, two different sides of the same coin, Gio. So it was and it's a blessing to know that moment when your life changed. So I'm sitting in the driveway with my wife, and I'll set the story up. I went out for a run. I came back. My wife had a big yellow Hummer H2. It was something I promised her I'd make up as a gift, and it was gone. And I'm like, okay, my wife had gone out. I came home. She's still in bed because it was early. And I'm like, oh crap. Well, this is during the going bankrupt. They repoed her car. And I remember at that point I couldn't take it anymore. I knew that things weren't good. We were losing money. Um, I was drowning in business debt. Personally, we were fine, but we had a lot more debt, which had all been personally guaranteed than we had assets. So this was a, bad situation. So I finally broke down and I told my wife, we're sitting in the driveway and I told her, I said, I've got some bad news. She said, what? I said, I'm losing everything. And she looked at me and she said, I thought we were everything. And
Mm,
that was it. At that
man.
moment, I knew what was
Mhm.
important in my life. Stuff was not important. And from that point forward, it never became important again. I mean, we ended
Mm.
up losing the house and, having to start over. And I remember being down to having 20 bucks in my wallet and that feeling of, helplessness. But, at that moment, I also leaned into my faith. And there's a whole story about, what happened after that. But essentially, I stopped trying to be the problem solver and I gave the problems to God. And I said, I prayed.
No,
And
wait. This is so beautiful, man. I'm moved right now, and I want to celebrate it because it's great to be fucking moved. So, you're losing everything. You lose your hammer, your wife's hammer, the yellow one.
yeah,
It was super cool.
yeah,
And then you come home and then you tell her, hey, I messed up. We're losing everything. And she says, I thought we were everything.
yeah.
That is powerful. What a wonderful woman. Oh, wow.
Well, it tells you everything you need to know about her because
Yeah,
money,
no kidding.
money
Wow.
never meant anything. We got married at 18 and we had negative $10,000 in net worth. We had to pay for the baby when the baby was born, and we had nothing. And here's a woman that loved me for me. Right? That's already an amazing gift that I took for granted. Only because I was so obsessed with I'm going to prove to the world that I'm worthy. I didn't finish didn't finish college. I didn't have the paper. I didn't have the background. But through a lot of self-abuse and just, I always said my greatest strengths we're a low tolerance for pain and learning disability, because I kept doing the same things over and over, thinking it's going to be different this year. And the reality is, until I started doing some different behaviors, and until I learned that it takes courage to ask for help. And my whole life was never let them see you cry, never let them know you're scared, never ask for help, fake it till you make it. All those things that society tells us, none of those are true. It takes courage to ask for help. Courageous men and women seek help. They seek guidance. They say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but can you help me figure this out? And it was that moment in life where my wife said, I thought we were everything, that I realized that I had my priorities in the wrong order.
In the wrong order. That's so
And,
wonderful.
and so
Sorrel, do you have a question, or can I get another one? Go ahead, Sorrel.
Just want to take it in the direction of the question you posed, Brian. Your story with your wife and everything has me reaching a conclusion about what your purpose is. And I'd love to hear you articulate it for us. So you ask, are you living your purpose?
right.
My assumption is that you are. So what is for you your purpose, Brian?
Broadly stated, it's to leave the world in a better place than I found it when I came into it. And I do that through helping other leaders discover what I discovered the hard way. There's two ways to learn. One is through pain, through suffering, through failure. Failure is a great teacher. It's also the most expensive teacher you could ever have. I'm trying to help others learn from my mistakes by sharing those mistakes and then helping guide them, to do essentially the opposite of what we would all do naturally. And so I've built a business around that. I have another business that was designed to help, business owners around strategy and execution. But that's not my passion. My passion is to take and help leaders on this journey and let them know it's okay. Stop trying to be perfect. Let people see your flaws. You're a broken leader leading broken men and women. So show your brokenness. People will respect you and they'll connect with you. And more importantly, through your vulnerability, what you're doing is you're making it safe for other people around you to be vulnerable. And that's what we all want. That's what we all need. But yet society tells us to do the opposite. Don't admit that you made a mistake. You look at every leader and their downfall is they don't own their mistakes and the consequences of their mistakes. They deny it, or worse, they make excuses. And the minute you go into excuse mode, people lose respect for you. You lose credibility. And more importantly, people don't trust you because you're not safe. And so, I feel like that's my purpose in life, is to share with other leaders that this is a journey of a lot of different failures. And it only looks like success when you've gotten to a point in life where you've achieved what society says is success. But success is every day. It's that being on that journey, and it's not quitting, and getting stronger, learning, and more importantly, mentoring. It's more about the people you mentor, not the money you make. And it's about impacting life. So my life is around, I've stopped chasing success, and now it's about significance. It's about making the world a better place. And I know that sounds Pollyannish, but man, I'll tell you what, waking up every day, getting to do what I do for a living, my litmus test is if I say, I can't believe I get paid to do this, then I know I'm doing the right thing. And I say that every day when I wake up. I can't wait. I can't wait to do what I'm doing. It's not work when you love doing it. And more importantly, if I say to myself, I can't believe I'm doing this and getting paid, this is pretty cool. So,
Brian, this is phenomenal, man. Sorrel, I'm thinking, man, I wish we had another hour, because now I want to start diving into the kind of training that you do, Brian, and how do you create those shifts, those paradigm shifts in men and women in the context of leadership. So you got to come back, Brian. You've got to come back.
be
Now
happy
I
to.
want to open up, if you're okay with that, Sorrel, maybe comments or questions from our beloved audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, Brian, you mentioned vulnerability, and it's the critical nature of it and the role that it plays. And uh, Ingrid is showing. Ingrid, can you come off mute and go ahead and share with us what you're showing?
Oh, I'm busy talking. I've had this button for over 30 years. Asking for help is a sign of strength.
Yes.
And when he just said it's courageous, I had to run and get the button because it is. And we don't realize that. And everybody feel that we have to show this machoism, not to be sexist, but especially for men. We've raised our boys, our young kings, to think that you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to show emotion, and you're not to admit that you're hurting or that you're not living up to society standards. And I'm so glad that I was here to hear Brian share, and even the way it's delivered. I really appreciate you, Brian, for your authenticity and your transparency. And I pray that everybody that's here today will learn and grow from your experience and your story. And what is the name of your podcast?
It's the C-Suite Sherpas, and that's the one that Giovanni was on. And it's really a podcast designed to help business owners really get the word out and get connected. So it's part of that whole living a life of service. I do it to help other people, and byproduct of helping other people is there's this thing called reciprocity, that people just want to start helping you. So I never ask for help because I've got so many people that are offering help. But when I do need it, I'm clear about what it is that I need, right? So Ingrid, I appreciate your comments. I can tell that you're looking at the world the same way that I do. This, and if I can say for a second, talking about emotions and young men, the one emotion that young men have been taught is bad is anger, and anger is righteous if you use it to do good things. So what I help men do is learn how to channel that anger into something to do good, not to use it as a weapon. And that's where anger comes out sideways and we don't know how to control it. And I always say it's like having an attack dog that you train on command to attack and then never giving it the command. It's having control of that anger. And that's what real men do, as opposed to using it to harm other people or, weaponizing it against the people you love the most. So yeah, controlling anger is an important, it's an equal emotion to all the others. There's nothing bad about it. It's just what we do with it.
Yes, I'll say anger is the energy, and we have to know how to channel that energy.
That's right. Exactly.
And not restrict it.
Thank you, Ingrid. Brian, I had a conversation with my son about, I'm going to say about 5 days ago. So I don't live with my son, and his mother called me and said, hey, we need to talk to Stefano. He's 18, right? And because he's kind of coming across a little too strong lately. Too strong. It's kind of scaring me a little bit. And you got to put your dad hat on, man. And I said, okay, let me call Stefano. And so I go to Stefano and said, hey, man, we played some tennis, we let some energy out. And then I said, hey, we need to talk. There is a way you're coming across that if absent of managing it, it can be scary. Your voice projects, you see what I'm saying? And he's like, okay. So we navigated that conversation to take responsibility for the impact that is. And then he said, hey, but I have a question. And I said, yeah. He says, I have all this anger in me, man. How do you manage this? Like, it's like there, like I want to like punch things. Like I want to I just need this shit to come out. And then, Brian, I was thinking, man, that's so true. I remember being that way. I remember not knowing how to let this thing go.
Right.
How to give all this thing inside of me to have this freedom to explode, right? And so I used cars and I drove like insane. And man, I did a lot of crazy things around that. So I was wondering, Brian, and we're coming up with the end of this podcast. It's a half an hour conversation, but I was wondering if you had an insight that about channeling the anger, channeling those emotions. If you had an insight on how to go about that.
It starts with, it's a process, and it like I mentioned, it's like training an attack dog, right? The dog has the instincts to either love people or attack people. And just like us, we have these emotions. So the first thing is to just recognize and own them, right? So, when you get angry, say, hey, I need to check in. And there's a check-in process. It's very simple. It's sachet, sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. Those are the 6 basic emotions. And so with my wife, I say, I say something stupid. I'm known for that. And then I say, you know what, sweetheart, I'm sorry. First of all, let me own what I just did. You came home right when I was having a bad moment, and I'm checking in angry and scared. And you just witnessed that. That wasn't aimed towards you. Problem solved. Right. The problem is we're not even aware of, these are things we can't control. So you can control your emotions, but it starts with recognizing them and actually building up a sense of awareness that you're going through something. I used to say I was an angry man most of my life. And then beneath that anger, I found out I was scared. But I used anger to shield myself from being scared. I'm never going to admit I'm scared. So being scared made me angry. So when I started owning my emotions, I could say, actually, I'm scared. And here's what I'm afraid of. And again, going through that financial crisis, my wife and I agreed I would never keep those secrets from her again, because I was trying to protect her. But the reality was I was holding all that energy and it was destroying me. So it starts with owning your emotions, and then watch what happens. It diffuses the stories, because you walk through the house and you're mad, she's mad, and both of you are building stories about, oh, what did I do to make you mad? You don't appreciate me. Stop. Don't let people build stories. Just speak your truth. Tell them, hey, I'm angry. It has nothing to do with you, and this is what's going on. And watch what happens. So I teach. That's what you want to teach your kids. That's what you want to teach people that you work with, is teach them how to check in.
Check in. Thank you, Brian. Sorrel, thank you. Go ahead, Sorrel.
Brian, I'll just say thank you. And Gio, you're right. This is a 2-hour and maybe 32-hour conversation. There's just so much that you bring to the party as a contribution to human beings and to business owners. It really doesn't matter where you are in life, whatever role you're playing, what you bring to the party is essential to being effective at that role. So thank you for the contribution, Brian.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for allowing me to share my story.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Well, Gio, wrap it up, man.
Okay, man. Thank you, Sorrel. Well, Brian, thank you for being here. Sorrel, thank you for being here. Farid, haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for being here, Farid. Kurt, Coach Ingrid, Virtual Liz, Maria. Those of you who are looking at us on YouTube, thank you for connecting. This is the Daily Huddle, where we talk about anything about business, leadership, spirituality, health and wellness, mindset, relationships. Thank you for plugging in. I love you. Sorrel loves you more. And for this cold weekend, if you're anywhere in the north, here are the 8 tenets to live a warm, renegade, and purpose-driven life. First, love. Love those you have an opinion about. Love those who think differently from you. Love those who voted differently from you. Vote. I mean, love. Love. Eat more plant-based. Get closer to the trees. Hug the trees. Eat the trees. Eat a little more plant-based. It will give you energy you can't even imagine. Don't worry about Red Bull. Think vegetables. Now, I got a lot of work to do on that. Sleep more, at least 8 hours. Give it a chance. 7 hours, getting close. At least 8 hours. The more you sleep, the sexier you become. The more you sleep, the more energy you have. The more you sleep, the more testosterone you have. Sleep more. Always move. Every day, move a little bit. In the morning, right after you wake up, move. Right after lunch, move. 10 minutes a day. 10-minute walk will change the rest of your life. Give what you have. Give a little bit here, give a little bit there, but give all your resentment away, give all of your love away, give it all. And don't stress too much. I think this is all there is. Maybe this is the only life you have. Might as well take it easy, have fun, smile. And lastly, but not least, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Check your assumptions before you wreck yourself. I love you, so I love you more. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.